So, let's do the third recap for the Edge of the Empire campaign, which I've been enjoying immensely. When we left off last time, the group had discovered it had been set up. And they weren't really sure if they were specifically targeted or if they were set up just, because it was convenient. They had taken a job to carry a team out to scuttle an Imperial ship with a green crew and then help them escape. And they were, predisposed to not look favorably on the Empire at that time, so they took the job, thinking in the back of their mind that this might be an action being undertaken by this rebel alliance that they had heard about. But what they discovered as they were being double-crossed was that they had taken a contract from a very vicious group of, let's call them gangsters. They weren't really sure who they were. So when they get back, having defended themselves successfully against the attempted murder by their human cargo, they made it back to the space station, which is their headquarters, and began to try and reconnect with their underworld contacts, only to discover that a lot of them had gone into hiding. Many had been picked up by the Imperial troops. News of the scuttling of the picket ship had already reached the station, of course, and some kind of power struggle was going on in the underworld community. So they, of course, needed to get off the station, and they needed to avoid Imperial entanglements, and they needed to get in touch with people who really knew what was going on. So one session was devoted to figuring all this stuff out and dressing up like stormtroopers, infiltrating the Imperial holding facility, which was temporarily established because their normal brig was far too small for the number of people that they were picking up. It wasn't just picking up the usual suspects, it was rounding up whole members of rival gangs. And so our team needed to get one of their contacts out of prison. So the most expeditious way to do that was to send the bounty hunter in one way and to disguise some of the others as stormtroopers and go in a two-pronged assault and free their contact, and succeed they did. When they tried to make it back to their ship, the Archon, they discovered that a very dangerous-looking team of Trandoshans was waiting for them and had set up a kill zone between the bay doors and their ship. And what are they going to do about it? So, pressed for time, they split up. Those who were not dressed as stormtroopers took their contact, and they went toward the shuttle bay where cargo runs to the planet are going on continually. And they tried to schmooze their way in, while our two dressed as stormtroopers just marched up to the ship, marched onto the ship, and one of the Trandoshans went in to follow them. They silently took them out, closed the doors, and with a little bit of trouble with the landing bay defenses, took off and evaded the very minimal pursuit because the Imperial picket ship had, as I mentioned before, been scuttled. That was the dramatic end, the fiery escape of the Archon from Vev Station. Next session picked up with them reuniting on the planet. They'd made some Ithorian merchant contacts to get them down, the rest of them down off the planet, and they tried to reconnect with the underworld that they had been dealing with, partly to upgrade their ship and get local information. There, they discovered that a rival gang was trying to take over the region, and the method that they were employing was to trick the local gangsters into acting against the Empire and attracting greater Imperial attention to come in and clamp down on the system. And then when the Imperials eventually would pull those forces back because they're needed somewhere else, this new gang would come in and fill the power vacuum. They didn't take very kindly to discovering this, and so they concoct a plan to take the fight to this rival gang, and they track him down through various means. They all have different information networks based on their occupations and the contacts that they've created. They tracked him down to this, well, it's basically wealthy resort planet where all the owners of the factories and manufacturing plants that are on the factory world that they've been hanging out on live. So they go there, and under the guise of roadies, a famous band has been disgraced, and they know this, and is touring the Outer Rim, and they know this, and so they say that they're a relief crew, that some of the roadies will be finishing their part of the tour and leaving, and they're coming in, and will be continuing to roadie for this band as it proceeds on to its next stop. So that's how they get their landing permit to this very exclusive kind of gated world. And once there, they start making contacts, again, based on their career choices with the local underworld at the very restrictive spaceport. And through those channels, they quickly infiltrate their way into the local underworld and get a source on their target, where they can find their target. And they learn that they have walked into the middle of another rivalry, a brother and sister, rival heads of what used to be one large underworld. And they have managed to find traces to both. So by allying themselves with the sister, they get themselves oriented properly on the planet, and they learn that the brother, the person who's ultimately responsible for nearly getting themselves killed, well, he basically spends his time at this immense casino. And so they need to figure out a way to get in there. That ends another session. The next session was the group setting themselves up with false identities, false wealth, in order to carry out their plan of going in as high rollers, getting close to this guy, and then playing it by ear, taking him out or trying to get some advantage from it. And while they're there, they learn that this particular gangster has an obsession with this ancient Jedi order, and that somewhere on this planet there was an old Jedi temple. And as one of the characters is beginning to manifest some force powers, the player's ears perked up. And so infiltrate the casino they do, with a couple of close brushes with casino security, far scarier than planetary security. And everybody's on edge. And so our droids head back to the ship to deal with bureaucratic red tape, basically. The ship's going to be impounded, and they've discovered this ongoing scandal, let's say, of ships being impounded. Someone on the planet is impounding ships for the slightest reason. So they're heading back to the ship to prevent this from happening. And on their way, they stumble across a bounty hunter who's looking for one of the characters who's now in the casino. And a tense standoff ensues. And we're cutting back and forth between all these scenes. Now, inside the casino, we've got 3 characters. 1 serving as a bodyguard, and 2 posing as bored, rich, not very clever gamblers, marks. And we gamble. We have great fun using the narrative dice to do the bluffing and assessing of the enemy, of throwing games, and they work in concert to make sure that one character gets flagged for VIP attention. And flagged he is, and he's pulled into this restricted area, no cameras, heavy security, and they can't really see what's going on in there. Meanwhile, back at the ship, the bounty hunter winds up in physical confrontation with our PC bounty hunter, and the confrontation ends with the detonation of a thermal detonator. Is the character going to survive? There's a lot of panic and white-knuckle dice rolling, but the enemy bounty hunter falls to his own trap, and our characters, although burnt, and ears, or audio receptors ringing, have enough wherewithal to get back to the ship to start conducting repairs on themselves and the ship. Well, that ends one session. Last session, we saw inside the VIP room of the casino, and what they discovered in there had them rock back on their heels. What I had done was invented my own Star Wars gambling game, and I'll put the details for it on my blog. It's too much to explain. But basically what it involves is several rounds of cards with bluffing and betting, which then ends with the high and the low roller being pitted against each other into some kind of challenge, either physical or mental. And some of these challenges wind up to be potentially deadly. Even walking into the area is a physical challenge of agility. And the character's thinking, I'm going to die now. And he said to me that never in his life has he been so physically responsive to the events in a game. And I take that as a sign that he really likes his character, and that the play environment, where the mood between the players somewhat reflects the mood between their characters, has been very conducive into producing a very immersive experience, and not just for him. So that was nice feedback to get. So sitting down at the table, he actually feels like he's gambling with his life, and he's sweating. He's making his decisions about whether he will raise or play it safe. And finally he decides, no, I didn't come here to play it safe. And he just goes all in, and winds up in 2 physical challenges and a mental challenge. And over the course of a very long and stressful game, while other events are going on for all the other characters, so we keep cutting away from them at dramatic moments, and cutting back away from them during their dramatic moments. The almost 4-hour session just moved like gangbusters. And when we get to the end, he's tapped on the shoulder by the man he's been looking for to join the real game. And that's where we left it. And so we'll pick up tomorrow is at that moment. And what Captain Paul Highwind and his associates are going to do. The deadly hired gun, Henry, serving as a bodyguard to the Bothan not espionage agent named Moss. What is he going to do? What is Moss going to do as he's also slowly working his way up toward this winner circle? And that very clear sense of danger hanging over everything. This is the man they want to get. This is the man they want to punish, if they don't die trying.